everyone. We'll do a quick intro to our projects and everyone on screen. We are Future Arts, and we're here to talk about our interactive public mural installation called Cut, Crush, Decay that was made in partnership with Cornish College of the Arts, specifically their newly launching Cornish Plus program. And yeah, we're super stoked to talk a little bit more about our process and have a discussion with our team about the project. And it will be opening in September. Definitely check it out. There will be public tours. There will be some programming that everyone can attend, and you can also check it out at any time on your own. So we'll do quick intros of everyone on screen. I'm Yuliya, Bruk, pronouns she, they. I'm the founder and creative director of Future Arts. And Future Arts is a local arts and technology nonprofit that's driven by nature processes. And we're women non-binary led and enjoy interdisciplinary collaborations like these. So I'll throw it over to Anna.
Hi, everyone. Anna Czoski, pronouns she, her. I am a co-founder and the creative technology design director at Future Arts. And I'll throw it over to Laara.
Hello, everybody. I'm Laara, one of the co-founders of Future Arts with these lovely humans. I go by she, they, and my background is restaurateur, choreography, design, events, some interior spaces, and generally just finding fun excuses to bring people together. And Future Arts is a really wonderful platform to get really arty and nerdy with it and work with lots of amazing creative people to always learn from. And I'll pass it to Sabin.
Hi, I'm Sabin Timalsena, pronouns he, him. I'm a computational artist and a creative technologist. I like to play with cutting edge technologies, and especially from an angle of exploring geometry, mathematics, and naturally inspired systems. And I'm collaborating with Future Arts in this project to realize a digital layer and create a unique experience.
Awesome. We also have a lot of other folks involved in this project. I would say the four of us have probably had the most conversations throughout the process since we're interweaving, but we've been really impressed and excited about how many different students, faculty, artists such as Sabine, tech sector folks are coming together to create this. Cornish has been really wonderful in providing us support with the fabrication as well, and other local maker spaces and all kinds of exciting discussions we've had. We started this collaboration in really December, even November. So it's been quite a long time. I think we're all in disbelief that it's going to be up on the walls shortly after this airs. So we're deep in the production phase right now, and it's really getting juicy and exciting. So I guess I'll ask some questions, and we can kind of have an organic discussion and let it flow, kind of like the project flowed. The project was really leaning into something called emergent strategy, which is a term, a book actually by Adrienne Marie Brown. She's wonderful, and their way of discussing how nature affects different processes of collaboration and biomimicry, and ways that we should turn to nature when we're thinking about the future of how different disciplines are working together. And we believe at Future Arts that that really is the future of work and the future of how we all live. So I guess the question to everyone is, what is emergent strategy to you, and how has it reflected the way we've been working together? And then we can kind of start from the beginning and just talk about the project and how it emerged. But let's start from emergent strategy.
that's a good place to start for sure. I'll break the ice. I'm like, who goes first? Yeah, I think it's been really interesting coming up with a nugget or a seedling that we can water and let grow. And at the same time, you have sort of a shared vision, and there's some tension between these starting places and knowing that there's a shared goal, a shared vision, and allowing room in between those two spaces to have its own life and let things unravel and unfold in a natural way according to the collaborators and the people influencing the process, and letting things emerge as they come, as opposed to holding on too tight to what you think something should be. I think sometimes constraints in the art world are always great, but I think sometimes in life, in business, in art, in our relationships, we might hold on to things too tight and not really give things room to grow in ways that they need and be influenced in ways that they need. So I think we're leaning into that in this process, giving it's like, well, I think we might have lost count, easily more than 10 folks at this point, a dozen plus, influencing the life of this piece, and just allowing all those voices to be heard and influence the piece. Um, really exciting.
I see it as kind of, as always with collaborations, but especially this one, I think of course, interconnected networks, and kind of like you were saying, how each collaborating person kind of brings their network and community, and when we intertwine and weave together these different people and stories and backgrounds and experiences. And so the fact that we've involved, you know, industry, creative technology, students, you know, nonprofit worlds, it's really exciting to see this web of mycelium grow into like this bigger organism than we could have ever expected, and we didn't know the outcome, and that was the exciting part. It was emergent.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of approaching art projects, like emergent strategy, right? What we're doing as collaborators, and what we've the way we've approached this project, it's steering itself, like based on various tendencies, right? And then we all have our own influences on how the project proceeds and what we think it'll look like. And that's very similar to emergence in nature, I guess, because it's there are forces that you control, there are forces that you do not control, there are various tendencies that are mixed together, and then you kind of let the project steer itself. And then I think we've kind of taken a similar approach, and it's really exciting to see this project come to life through a collaboration of many different ideas, and they're all like they all have distinct influences in terms of like how we're building it, what we're building it with, and how does it look like, how does it behave. And I find that really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like we did a interesting job allowing a lot of push and pull and flexibility, yet maintaining a clear structure of how, you know, we had cadences of meeting, we had still a very clear phase structure. I think we do that a lot as an org, is there's phase one, phase two, phase three. We might not know exactly what falls in those phases, but it is a mind shift, you know. Now we're in production phase, so everyone's a little bit like, okay, things are happening. What was it like, I guess, Sabine, when we first approached you and pulled you in to the mycelium that we're building? And at the beginning, what was the beginning like? We can kind of start from there and go through these phases together and reflect on them.
Right. So my practice is mostly around taking any source of data, right? It could be a source of randomness, a source of chaos, or whatever source it is. So in this case, we're capturing data using multiple methods, right? So that's when we got started. We were doing captures using different sensors, like using AI technology to do motion capture. And then so with that, we had like a lot of data. And the question really was like, we can do like an infinite number of things with this data, and what exactly are we going to do with it? Right. So I think that's the, we were exploring answers to that question like when we first started collaborating here. So we have these, multiple gigabytes of captures, and how do we take this stream of like numbers, and then how do we convert it? How do we reshape it, transform it, so that it can be applicable in different contexts, right? So it's not so that it can be applicable both for digital and physical applications. And I think yeah, I remember we spent a lot of time like trying out various approaches, and then prototyping and throwing away ideas, coming up with new ideas. And I think that was a really good exercise in being really like familiar with the data and understanding the data that we captured at the lowest level of detail, and then using properties, extracting interesting facets of that captured data, and then expressing it with with new kinds of abstractions.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, we've been through so many different layers and processes. I wanted to actually go a little bit back and explain what was the data and everything. I don't know if Laara, you wanted to kind of talk about what is this and who's the players, and where's this data coming from, and a little more about
Yeah, kind of
what.
high level the project description in total. Yeah. Well, we knew we had a surface area the size of a whale to cover, and we knew it was going to be public. And we knew that we had the sort of sign on with Kevin, who leads the art and sculpture department, and Charlotte, who's in the dance department, via Kel's introduction, who's running and launching the Cornish Plus program. She sort of ushered in this introduction, and we met in front of the mural and started chatting. And even though we didn't know exactly what we were going to do, everybody was into it. So we got to work with sculpture students, and we got to inspire the sculpture students to collaborate with the dance and choreography students. And the way they chose to set up their relationship was that the sculpture students would choose an object to make a mold for and ideate some sort of installation space. And then the choreography students would create a solo inspired by that object. We Future Arts definitely created and presented to the students some biomimicry concepts to help inspire. We were really inspired with heliotropism and mycelium, and using those processes for a creative process, but wanted to introduce those to the students as well. Very interestingly, we ended up with scissors, crushed cans, and meat that the sculpture students chose, and the choreography riffing off of that. We motion captured the choreography, and it was really fascinating to see how the students you really did see the iterations of those things come through on the movement. And then we worked with creative technologist and artist Joshua Borsman in his studio to kind of derive various ways to capture the movement and or the sculptures. And we landed on a few different things. We did some polycam scans. We did some Move AI, which is some AI technology, which is essentially video that helped us translate those bodies into 3D digital space. So we had an abundance of information now. And then the students were out of session, and we just sort of had these assets. And then at that point, we went into another cycle of ideation and creation with Sabin, and deciding what we want to do with that data and how we want to visualize it. So bringing real life stuff into digital spaces, and then kind of mixing it up to figure out how to get it back into a three-dimensional space, which will be the mural. And then we will also have an augmented reality digital layer to integrate with the physical mural. So we've kind of bounced back and forth between various realms along this process.
The other technology we used, I don't know if you mentioned, was Connect for the point clouds. And so we really haven't been using that too much, but that was really an interesting process to look at the various tools that are out there and available.
I suppose there's the motion capture suits. We did have a moment with those.
We did, yes.
Needless to say, not everything you try works.
It worked the first time just fine. And never again.
So I think that when I'm trying to remember when we had our aha moment and Sabine was sending us, I mean, you were going, you were just getting in there with the data. Maybe if you could pull up some of the twirlies, that'd be fun to see how some of those in motion. I think there was, this idea that each body has 35 joints, which is part of the Move AI software that is our partner, our technology partner. And Sabine was manipulating some of these motion trails. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that, but there was a point where you were essentially manipulating time, and there was something that looked very much like this, where we were like, oh my gosh, there's our mural, because it's fitting. I mean, it was fitting the shape, but there's something really, really beautiful about the way that the story unraveled. But maybe if you could talk a little bit more about, these beautiful images that you created.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Laara mentioned, we did so many different kinds of capturing data and trying out different methods of capturing movement, right? So essentially, that's what we're dealing with here. And we're taking a four-dimensional process, right? These performances, these dances, these are four-dimensional processes. They happen in space and in time. And then we captured it using a Kinect. We captured it using Move AI, which gives us the motion capture data. And then we also captured some stills using photogrammetry to capture some of the interesting poses. And I found the Move AI data the most interesting out of all of these, because it is easily I can work a lot with this data, because I can track like everything that's happening, like um, all of the micro, like minuscule movements of every joint that has been captured, and then play around with it. So this was the one of the first experiments where um, right, you cannot really tell like the shape, but you can see like some human features in this. If you've seen the performance, then you can probably tell like what's going on. But this is like a very highly abstract representation of trying to bring down the four-dimensional shape projected onto 3D, right? So the entire performance captured into one abstract sculpture. And so in doing this, I tried different approaches of manipulating space and time, right? So essentially, as the dance is progressing, as the performance happens, I change the space around around the captured data, and I have the option to like do things like speed up and slow down time, or like change the extract like motion parameters like speed, acceleration, etc. from the motion, and use that as elements in constructing this kind of geometry. We can also look at some other um, examples from some of our initial experiments, and I think this one's interesting. Yeah, so this is right. So it's like a real time, like you're kind of like weaving something, and then there are forces at play, like so these strings that the dancer is generating, they have their own qualities and tendencies, which applies forces to them at different points. So you can kind of tell by they're deforming themselves in various ways. And so I guess like we tried a bunch of a lot of that, and then we tried different some other ways of doing the same thing. This one's a much simpler example, right? So we're just like moving, right? It's like a very straightforward, like 4D to 3D transformation, you could say. But yeah, this leads to like a lot of interesting shapes, and really the problem of trying to take like a 2-minute performance and then squeeze all of that information into an abstract sculpture, right? So yeah, these were some of the experiments we did, and so you can kind of see like all of the 3 performances that we captured using Move AI being represented by these abstract 3D sculptures. And yeah, this was extremely. I had a lot of fun, playing with this data, and yeah, and still we have only. I think we have only scratched the surface because there's still so much more that we can do with this.
Yeah, it strikes me how mycelium-y it is, which, you know, stemming from the root of our initial biomimicry assignment we gave ourselves, and how the way we work really represents those mycorrhizal networks. And sorry, Anna, I always mispronounce that word, but it's, the mycelium being intertwined and speaking to each other and protecting each other. And this to me, is very, very reminiscent of a lot of those shapes. And we were really excited to see that, since that was initially what we were striving towards. But yeah, and for essentially the final mural, you'll see on the Ivy on Boren is a building at Cornish, and it's actually on the Lenora side of the building where the mural will be seen. It'll be seen through October, the end of October, and like we said, there will be an augmented reality part to it that will bring it to life, and you'll see some of these motion trails, and we're still very much in the process of it right now. But I'd love to kind of talk about the physical realm. So after we had this aha moment with these beautiful images that Sabine has been working on, we had to start thinking of the physical and how they're going to be intertwining. And our natural physical partner is Ecovative, and I'll let Anna talk about that part since she's our mycelium expert.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't really mention my background at the beginning, which is a mixture of a lot of different things, from game industry to UX design to VR extended reality spaces. But more recently, been really excited about bioart and using these natural processes and into substances themselves. And so Ecovative is doing that and created this technology around using mycelium, which is, if you don't know, like the root structure of fungi, right? And so what they do is they have developed a way to grow it really quickly, and really it can become different, serve different purposes in the ways they use it, from repurposing plastics and styrofoam for packaging to actually, creating different surface design. So they use the mycelium as a structure in very different ways. For acoustical dampening, actual building material, it has a fire-resistant quality to it, of all things, and so many more applications.
I hadn't thought about the fire resistant. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we might still have a fire show. I mean, this is still evolving. Look, y'all, you're gonna have to come check it out. You might see some stuff. It is still emerging. You might get to plant some mycelium.
Yeah, the fire show would go really well with the sprouting bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can also see we went through a lot of different natural other ways, natural systems we can incorporate, from paper pulp, which is very sustainable. We at one point wanted to compost this whole thing live at the end after we took it down, because that's a process we don't often talk about, where art goes afterwards, and have, seed paper. So have it grow, literally plant our giant mural afterwards. I mean, we have a lot of these kinds of conversations. We had 3D printing at the Cornish makerspace. We were talking about retroreflective materials at some point that were actually, they are sustainable, oddly enough, some of them. And yeah, we did a bunch of sketching. I have our sketches, early on sketches here that we did together at Joshua's studio. Bunch of different ideation that we've gone through. And then Anna, actually, you scanned this in VR, so I think we're in the process of finally getting this thing into VR before hanging it, so we can I'm currently not in Seattle, and I have my VR headset here, so we might do a little work sesh in VR, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, in that way we can all be in the same place and jam on what this actually looks like, because as experiencing it in 3D at scale is such a different experience than just manipulating it with pixels, right? So it's been a really interesting process to go from these beautiful organic shapes that Sabine created and extruded into, how do we make this, an installation that has dimension, but also there's a lot of flattening involved. But how do we keep that story of each of the dancers, their process, their movement, um, and that's another connection I see to mycelium as a metaphor, is the dancer's movement extruded is this invisible structure, much like mycelium, that holds it together. And yeah, I'm excited to incorporate that into this installation as well. This is one of our very early tests of using this ecovative material. So they've been really helpful with showing us how to best create this and manipulate with it. So giving us a wood backing, for example. It has this like velvety finish that is really hard to describe. So,
Petable sculpture. Love that.
very petable.
Anna, you said something that triggered my brain, just about our title and how it's inspired by the actions of not only the objects that we've iterated on in so many ways to derive at our finished product, but also cut, crush, decay is the process that we've been utilizing as part of this. So we had these like 3-dimensional digital sculptures, and we literally had to cut and crush them and flatten them to come up with various layers that we could then translate into CAD files so that we can get CNC cuts of large wood panels, and acrylic panels to then do sort of a layered topographical flattened but also dimensional sculpture and representation of these dance works that are essentially space and time. Anyway, just fun little layers of all the ways that we've kind of iterated in our process.
I know, Anna, you also have our miniature, so we've
Yeah.
been in the makerspace for the past couple of weeks. So I guess this is the big reveal of the mini version of just the physical part. And maybe if Sabine has any other kind of AR, there's that really cool video of the tendrils kind of going across the screen, but we're still working on it, so maybe we won't give you too much
Yeah, we
about
won't
the
give it
AR.
all away.
But
Surprise.
yeah, this is. But we realized that since we weren't quite ready to see it in VR because it's like a chicken egg at that point, we just started essentially creating all of the layers and different materials and treating it like a puzzle and just seeing what looks good. And that really, really helped us make some decisions, because to really get into the next phase of the project, it's all about decisions, right? And we want to make sure that we are the most informed we can, but also we take a lot of risks, and because we don't know. I mean, this thing is still only 2 feet, and the big one's going to be 40 feet. So
Yeah. Oh, no.
I'm sure. Yeah. Ta-da!
So, ta-da! So I wanted to show this one first because this was, one of the first pieces of our process that we really just loved all of these interwoven shapes, and you can see the movement, you can feel it in a way, and this is actually only one dancer, but it was our process of cutting, editing, like, and squishing down in the crush component too, of looking at just how can we display these different layers together. And this was actually only a cross section of that one dancer's movement. And then we had another editorial moment. Let me make sure it's like the right direction. I don't know if you can see this whole thing, but this is the three dancers sort of all layered on top of each other. You can see this, maybe it's fun to mention that the starting position, Day was actually laying down and very still, and you can see that at the lowest layer, wooden layer here. You can see all of her extremities, just going through time and space. So that's pretty neat to be able to visualize the movement in that way. But Yuliya, did you want to talk more about the process of editing? Or
Oh, the editing process. Well, this really only happened last week. Well, we don't know what week this is playing in, but or maybe weeks now ago. Time has been interesting, right? But we as we bring folks in, other collaborators, we always love the fresh perspective that they bring, because we're in it. I mean, you know how it is, those who have made art or creative projects that are very layered like this. It's we get lost in it, and get really into the process, and it all becomes very important. All the little bits and pieces and all the different storylines. It's really hard to let go of your darlings, as they say. So that's the way to do so, and the way to edit ourselves, we have found, is to bring others in, which is part of emergent strategy, part of biomimicry, is to allow that perspective. And we had a really long discussion with a new collaborator, and they just asked us a question about, do you really need all this information? Really? And just being able to really step back and see it from their perspective made it really apparent what's necessary. And then furthermore, Sabine is working on the augmented reality, so we really realized we need to respect the AR. I was like, wow, we're not respecting the AR. We need to give it space. We need to realize that the physical has to intertwine with the digital. It can't just be, we got really into the physical at one point. We were like, oh, we're going to make this and that and 20 million layers and like
So many
mycelium is going
layers.
to be everywhere. And we were like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. And then at a certain point, we were like, it's not like we forgot about the AR, but that needs to have space and it needs to have almost a backstory. And then the AR is really what's bringing it to life. And then it can really interplay. And I wonder what it was like to be on your side, Sabine, as we were like, we're bringing all these layers in, and you were so sweet and you were trying to make it work. But I kept being like, man, when we had that realization of like, we're not respecting the AR, I mean, that must have been kind of, I don't know, a roller coaster to
Um,
go along with the experiments.
no, I mean, I'm always in like a problem solving mode, I guess. So my reaction would be like, it doesn't bother me, but now what do we do next to like, make it work, right? What are the alternatives? And looking for, that's like my immediate response. Like instead of like, oh, this doesn't work. No, that's not the correct response. I think it's like, well, how do we make this work, right? So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's great to like mention that we're working under a lot of constraints from physical to digital, and each one of these processes has their own limitations in terms of materials, right? So how big can it be, how detailed can it be, how many layers can we do, and then also, in terms of the digital layer, like, how much can your phone handle, right? And we want to like create an experience that is like highly detailed, highly reactive, but then we also have to consider the limitations of the existing technology. And then, right, and we faced it several times before, for example with the Connect data, right? So it's like we captured all of this data, but
Mm-hmm.
it does not come with any tool to help us process it. And then we ended up like, um, so right, so we have our own like in-house tool to be able to process that data and to change it. And I think it's like similar for anything that involves technology, right? We cannot really make assumptions about the capabilities of something, because everything is going to have like some kind of limitation. And then, right, this is the right phase to tackle those challenges and to work around those limitations and see what can be done, what cannot be done. And I like really appreciate that you're taking that into account, like as part of the physical process, because that definitely does like influence like how easy it is to make the digital layer come to life, because it is somewhat dependent on the physical stuff. And I think it's also great when like these two things go like hand in hand. Like they're not like two separate things, but they're two parts of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. They're very
Very well
connected. They're
said.
interconnected.
Right.
Like not just because of the data, but because of all that thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now the install feels like a canvas and for the AR. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're all very excited to actually see what it looks like. That's the best part, is it's going to surprise us. That's my favorite part of working this way. I wanted to maybe share just a few photos from our record sessions and give some space for the amazing students we worked with and the faculty and Cornish, and you know also thank Kel, who's the AD over there. She's been amazing in supporting this project, and Kevin and Charlotte, and also mad props to KJ, and he's really kind of stepped up, and he's runs the makerspace, but also is an artist and um, maker and just multi-talented, and he's been a huge asset to this project, and also kind of came up with the title. Once again, we were struggling with the title, and he was the one that said, well, why don't you make it actions? It's an action project. And this is these moments we love, and we felt that moment of like, yeah, that's totally the title. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, other folks, Pinky and Rob and there's just been so many people coming together and offering consults, advice. David from Passable, Tim from Cascade Made. I mean, I'm just naming off who I can remember. Sorry if I'm missing anyone. We'll have a full list on our website of all the folks that have touched this project and changed it and merged it. And um, I wonder if, Laara, you could say a few words about this idea at the table of elements that we want to incorporate into our projects as we make them. And meanwhile, I'll share some photos of the students dancing and the sculptures and such as you talk about the elements.
Yeah, well, I always think it's interesting when you go to see a show and you have your art title and artist and, the general ingredients, if you will, for that art piece. But I think there's just so much more that goes into art, particularly a multi-human and multi-process art piece. So I thought it would be cool to kind of create a visual representation that we can wrap our brains around, and we're more or less all familiar with the periodic table, and we recognize it's the elements and the building blocks of various things. So I thought it would be fun if this project and projects going forward for future arts, if we could essentially come up with a periodic table of the building blocks of each of our art projects. And when you think about it, it's not only humans, but it's the tools involved, it's the power, the wattage, the computation, the software, all the tools along the way. I just think it's really fun to kind of create an artifact that could showcase all of that. So we're hoping to do some version of that with our mycelium didactic that will be really trying to showcase what the process of this project was, because the process actually is the art piece itself. And if there's some way to kind of demonstrate that, I just think there's so much more takeaway for anybody coming to the mural to experiencing, knowing that we started this in December and it involved all these humans and stemmed from biomimicry, scissors, cans, and meat. And the sun is really coming into my window. I apologize. I have to move
It's
my camera here.
heliotropism attacking you. There you go.
Yep,
It came
it
out.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think that's a great kind of ending thought is leaning into things when they might seem problematic or, nonsensical, but really leaning into the light of it, leaning into the connection of it. Scissors, cans, and meat. You saw some photos of this was, Day and her beautiful meat dance right here. And I mean, it was incredible. We had the scissors dance with Sophia, and we had Mackenzie and the aluminum cans, and then this was their performance in Cornish, and then we brought them into the studio and recorded their performance. This is Day being recorded, or this is post-recording when we did interviews. There's me getting a little interview. We will have a film, by the way, so there'll be lots of fun content with the students and all of us. But I wanted to show you, this is Mackenzie doing the cans dance, and movie I included 4 different cameras, just iPhone cameras that stitched the movements together that you saw Sabin share using an AI powered mocap program. They've been really awesome. They're London based and they're our official partner as well. So yeah, it's just been also awesome to work with students and hear their thoughts on how technology is going to affect them and how their bodies are going to be in this mural, in this installation. So just a lot of gratitude to them and their emotions because they're being represented here and they haven't seen the reveal yet. So we're really excited to have all these students see this collaboration. I think this was a huge thing that Cornish Plus was hoping for is bringing in this sort of interdisciplinary approach to education, and the way that learning is in this world. It's a lot more natural to the way our world works, is bringing a lot of folks in to work together. It just makes the process more strong. So, yeah, any other remarks or thoughts about that y'all want to say on this reflection of the project?
Right. I had an interesting thought about the nature of technology and its evolution. Right. So we're really combining a lot of disciplines in this project, and we're enabled by technology in unique ways. Like, for example, if you think about AR and VR, these are technologies that are like 50 years old, but they only recently became accessible in the last decade or so, right? It hasn't, before that, it was not accessible. And things like motion capture, like, all of these sensors, so they're like, like really old, but they have never really been like this accessible as they are right now.
Mm.
And I think we live in an interesting time where we have access to like so many of these, and we can start trying to incorporate all of these things that have now become accessible due to the improvements in like devices and computation. And that certainly does open the door to establish new kinds of collaborations, or to inject new kinds of processes into your existing workflow.
Really well said. Yeah, accessibility is huge, and we take accessibility seriously. And our tours will actually have some really interesting approaches to accessibility. So definitely check our tours out. By tours, it'll be essentially times when we will be on site to walk folks through the installation and have a little screening. So those that haven't done AR before love them, or have done AR and just want to meet us and learn about the project. We'll have those times on the website, and we hope to see everybody there.
Yeah. Did we
Really,
say that
really
it'll be
stoked.
up the all of September, October? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So if you go to our website, futurearts.co, we'll have all the information up on there. You can sign up on for a tour. I think we will at this point have a way to sign up for them, and there will be at least one every month well, for September, one for September, one for October, for the public, and then we're going to have some lunch tours for those folks that are working nearby, because it's walkable to a lot of different tech spaces, and we want to start bringing art to those tech spaces and tech to our art spaces, and just integrate more. And I guess one last thing I wanted to say is this project is a bit of a experiment for us, in the sense that it is a project that specifically shows our process. We have other programming we're working on that will be more reoccurring, but this was really a deep collaboration in a spot where we're a new organization, and Cornish is entering a new phase of their program with Cornish Plus, and it was a really sort of powerful way to not only show how we feel that our organizations work, but be able to work in that way. It was very meta. It was like we tested it on ourselves to create this piece as a representation of how we see the future. So that was really cool. But we do have other programs that are more reoccurring that you can check out on our website. So and get involved and hang out with us and chat. And I don't know, if you have ideas, just come talk to us. We love talking to people. That's something we do. Well, I guess this is it. Thanks for coming out. Lovely to chat with y'all and reflect on our process. And we still got a lot of work to do, so back to work. But yeah, follow us on the Instas, drop us a line. Thank you all, and see you at the mural with your smartphone. Get ready.